Mark Henderson simply wanted to fix his own ranch roof, but the HOA chair, Karen Miller, weaponized petty rules to turn his family's peaceful afternoon into a nightmare. Karen believed her power was absolute, enforcing regulations with cold certainty, until she met the man who actually wrote the laws she pretended to uphold. When Mark revealed his role as state compliance director, everything changed in an instant. But just wait until you hear how this shocking twist unfolded and why justice ultimately won the day. The July sun beat down on the wide, dry fields that stretched around Mark Henderson's old ranch. The shingles on the roof had taken the brunt of last spring's storm, and now, with sweat running down his back, Mark was finally repairing what nature had torn apart. The hammer strikes echoed softly against the still afternoon air. Below, Emma stood with a bucket of nails and a patient smile. Their two kids chased each other through the yard, their laughter mixing with the rhythmic sound of wood and metal. It was one of those rare moments where hard work felt almost peaceful, until the peace shattered. A sharp voice cut through the heat, slicing the quiet in half. "You can't do that here. HOA rules." Mark turned, squinting against the sunlight. Karen Miller, the head of the local homeowners association, stood rigid at the end of the driveway. Her phone was already in her hand, her expression a mix of authority and outrage. Before he could climb down, he heard her say into the receiver, "Yes, I need officers here immediately." Time seemed to pause for a heartbeat. Mark glanced at Emma. Her hand instinctively reached for the children. The creak of the ladder beneath his boots suddenly felt louder than the hammering had minutes before. 10 minutes later, the sound of approaching sirens rolled over the quiet land. Two patrol cars turned onto the gravel road and stopped by the gate. The flashing lights reflected off the dusty windows of the ranch house, painting the old wood in shades of red and blue. Mark stood on the roof, tools still in his hand as the reality sank in. Repairing his own home had just been turned into a scene of accusation. The day's warmth felt different now, heavier, charged with something neither he nor Emma had expected. Karen stepped forward with a calculated confidence, her voice loud and sharp as she addressed the arriving officers. "He's violating the HOA bylaws. This work is unsafe and could endanger the entire neighborhood." Her words were rehearsed, practiced, designed to paint Mark as reckless, a threat to the carefully maintained order she prided herself on. To Karen, rules weren't just guidelines. They were the foundation of control, a shield for her authority. Emma instinctively wrapped her arms protectively around the children, who had gone quiet, sensing the sudden tension that had filled their sunny afternoon. The officers, clipboard in hand, began asking for permits, inspections, approvals. Officials' language that felt like chains tightening around a family's right to their own home. Karen's eyes sparkled, not with kindness or understanding, but with the thrill of power. She truly believed she was doing the right thing, enforcing order in a community she'd invested herself in. In her mind, bending or ignoring these rules threatened everything she'd worked to uphold. That belief made her rigid stance all the more suffocating. It wasn't simply pettiness, it was conviction. And that conviction was the invisible force pressing down on Mark and Emma, turning their simple act of fixing their roof into a battle for dignity. Just as one of the officers reached for his notebook, preparing to issue a warning, Mark climbed down the ladder with deliberate calm. Every step was measured, silent, but beneath that quiet was a rising storm. Reaching into his pocket, Mark pulled out a worn leather badge. The metal caught the sunlight, as he held it up steadily for everyone to see. Mark Henderson, State Compliance Director. A pause hung in the air, heavy and electric. Then he added, voice firm and unyielding, I write the laws your HOA pretends to enforce. The yard fell utterly silent. The officers froze, caught off guard, and unsure how to respond. Karen's confident posture crumbled. Her face went pale, the color draining as shock and disbelief replaced her earlier certainty. For a moment, the invisible weight of authority shifted, no longer in Karen's favor but in Mark's hands. The balance of power, once tipped toward petty enforcement, had snapped back with quiet but undeniable force. A week later, Mark took his seat in the front row of the HOA meeting room, the atmosphere thick with anticipation. The board members shuffled nervously as he pulled out a folder filled with documented violations, illegal fines imposed without cause, overlooked safety hazards, clear examples of overreach beyond their authority. Calm and steady, Mark began to read aloud, each point landing like a hammer on the fragile image the board had built. You called the law to my house, he said quietly, locking eyes with Karen. Now the law lives here. The room erupted in murmurs, then applause from neighbors who had long felt stifled by the board's strict grip. Karen's shoulders sagged, defeat settling over her as she quietly handed in her resignation. Outside, the ranch roof shimmered under the afternoon sun, fully repaired and untouched by unnecessary restrictions. Beneath it, Mark's family breathed easier, finally free from the weight of false authority. Justice wasn't just served, it was home.